Okay, hi everybody, it's Chris Petri. Welcome. We're getting back into some watercolors here. We're going to do some wet style watercolors. We're going to flood the paper with lots of fresh, clean water, and we're going to create a nice scene, maybe by the shore, maybe some sand dunes. We'll have fun. We'll do improv here. I like to do improvisation when I create art a lot of times. I've always done that, especially when I was younger. In my younger years when I really wasn't, let's say, a professional artist, but I would just have fun with art, just create things off the top of my head, have a good time. There's a sense of freedom when we just create and have a good time with our art, and we're going to do that right now. So again, I'm in my mind having a thought of maybe some sand dunes. So maybe to the left here, we can create maybe a sand dune up high like this. And I'll go super light here with my drawing. So I'm just going to go super light with a pencil line. And I'm thinking maybe that gently rolls down like this. Like that. So it's almost on a 45-degree angle across the page. And I just have a soft rolling sand dune like this, and maybe we'll do another one across here like so, and we can do maybe a level spot here. So maybe this is where the sand is more level and flat. And then this is more of an embankment here of sand, white sand. And we're going to think of white sand, white paper. And we have the hill coming down this way, this sand dune here. And then maybe another, just maybe a little rolling hill here, a little sand dune there, like that. And that should be pretty good. And then maybe we'll do some water here too. Let's put in some water, the ocean water. That's going to be really level. So our line there is going to be really straight across. Like that. And we'll make a decision. We'll say, maybe we'll have the light coming from the left here. You can see I'm going to draw this a little darker, this pencil line here, but let's say the light's coming from here. So we'll make our typical light insignia. And on camera, I'll go a little darker now since we have a little bit of we have our pencil lines laid out pretty well. And this is going to be dark, the ocean, dark blue. And then another sand dune here, that's going to be white. And another sand dune here, little rolling hills of sand, and then another across here. So you can kind of see it's a real soft, angular and curvy lines of the sand dunes, nice and soft, and the ocean horizon line is going to be straight, level across here. And that's pretty much the layout. And then what I can do is, since I've drawn this pretty dark and you can see that, I'll leave it as that is. If you want, you can go with a lighter pencil sketch, or you can do a little bit of erasing if you want on some lines. Once you have your pencil lines laid out, you can come back and just do some pencil erasing, just to erase a few portions of the line so it's not so harsh looking with the pencil lines. But most of the pencil lines you won't see so much. And let's make some flowers and some brush over here and some plantings. And they're going to kind of flow with the breeze this way. And we won't go too detailed with this, just some lines. And let's make sure we have a good amount of these weeds and grasses and things flowing with the breeze. And we could even put an arrow on our paper, on our tape. So we have our watercolor paper taped, as you can see. And so we have our paper taped, watercolor paper. We have a border around it, and we could put this and then just put wind with an arrow. And that can be helpful. This way we kind of know the wind's going to be going this way. Anytime we're doing some grasses or flowers or plants or anything on this painting, we're going to reference our insignia of an arrow with the wind direction. And that's all. Just a simple reminder for ourselves, so we stick to that plan. Not that every single wisp of grass or plant has to be flowing this way. We can have a few occasionally go back the other way, but the prevailing curves of the grass and the plants and things are going to go to the right, this way. And again, the light is coming from the top this way, so our shadows will go this way. So we'll make some just some tiny indications on the sand of our shadow shapes. Like that. And a couple. I think with these plants and weeds and grasses and things, I think doing them kind of carefree and not so planned out is a good way to go. That's sort of like nature. So that's, no one was putting these weeds and these grasses on this beach with a tape measure, or you know what I'm saying? So it is sort of random. You can put we're just, again, creating this. We're just being creative and doing this off the top of our heads. And, we're just thinking out loud here. Well, these are just, happy, fun weeds and plantings and things. And we can put them anywhere we want, really. I wouldn't go with too many. I think this is plenty. There's some large croppings here, and then some smaller ones here. And that should be plenty. And over here, we'll put some other small indications of grasses and weeds and things over here too. But just very small and not too much detail. And the more that they're in the distance, they're smaller. That looks pretty good. All right, let's take a break. We've done our pencil sketch. We did the very simple, this is some nice rough watercolor paper. We taped it down, and we did our pencil sketch. We got our nice soft rolling sand dunes here. And we put in some of our plantings, our weeds here and grasses, and we'll have some flowers in here too. I'll put some round kind of flower shapes here and there, just so we remember to put some flower shapes in here too. Some interesting colorful additions to the weeds and things. And so that's pretty good. We're in a good place here. We have everything laid out nicely, and we're going to maybe just get an eraser. And I'll take a kneaded eraser, and I'll just do a little bit of erasing of lines. Not much, just a little bit. A couple spots here and there, just random, like that. All right, and now we're ready to paint. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll get started on our painting. Okay, and we're back again. We had a good break. Did you have a good break? Hope you got a little rest and relaxation for a few minutes or so. It's always good, maybe, to do sections or portions of your painting and take breaks. It really does help a lot. I've noticed over the years painting and drawing that those breaks really do help a lot with the quality of our paintings. So I'm hoping you'll definitely try that out. Use lots of breaks as you work. And okay, next we're gonna get some brushes here. So I'm gonna use like a flat brush here, square brush, to put on our washes. We're going to do this like in a glazing method. So we'll glaze on the first coating of wash, some nice sky wash, blue sky wash, and maybe some blue and purple shadowing over here on the dunes. And then once we do that, we're going to let that dry. So we're going to take another break actually pretty shortly. Using the glazing technique, a lot of times once you get on that first glazing of paint, water and paint, it's definitely a good time to take a break and let it dry really, well. Doesn't have to dry 100% completely, but definitely probably about 90%, 80-90%, and you can start. It's a feeling of things. When you work with watercolors, you're going to realize that the more you practice, the more you paint, year after year, you just become more used to the water and the paint and the paper and the drying times. And, maybe if you're new at watercolor and the first time you go out and paint outdoors and it's a sunny day out and you just can't believe it because you'll put one stroke of paint on your paper and the sun will just dry it immediately. And you'll think to yourself, like, oh, I can't believe this. But that's all about learning watercolors, learning the drying times of your water and paint, the dampness of your paper, when to go back in and do a little bit of work, when is it too wet not to go in, when is it damp enough you can go in and start working and doing some things. If you're going to do really fine details, better off waiting till the paper dries almost completely. So these are all things we learn and we talk about here on our channel. And I just do a little shameless plug right now and just mention that if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to our channel here. We do these type of watercolors every week, once a week, and we do different styles. We do seascapes, landscapes, cityscapes. We do flowers, still life. We do everything really here. So we mix it up and change around. So if you're kind of new or you just happen to come by for the first time, please hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell. So maybe you'll be alerted when my next video comes out. And also too, I just always put in a plug for my new watercolor channel. It's been online for a couple months, and that's it's Watercolor in 5. And with Watercolor in 5, I started it because sometimes we just don't have time to go over some of the smaller details here on this channel because we're trying to get through our paintings and we don't want to always be stopping and talking about maybe some more of the details of everything. So Watercolor 5 has a lot of details, what colors I use. I have a bunch of videos on here with my palette colors, how to keep your palette, how to make sure your paints stay moist, all these great things. So this is another fun channel you can check out if you want. And I would say, you know, please subscribe to that one as well, because there's a lot of great information on that channel. And I'm always putting videos on that channel as well, too. Okay. All right. So let's get back here, back in business. And we're going to do our first wash. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is I just keep a paper towel with a moist paper towel on top of my paints while we're doing our drawings so they stay moist. And what we'll do here is I'd like to keep, what I'm thinking in my mind is I want to keep a really nice white, crisp, bright light along the tops of these sand dunes. So in order to do that, I want to make sure I don't have wash going over the tops of the sand dunes. So what I'm going to do is before I do my first sky wash, I'm going to wet the paper along that top edge. So you can see I'm going around here with a damp brush. I'm not flooding my brush. I'm just wetting my brush and then tapping it off a little bit in my water container, or you can tap off a little bit of water on a paper tissue or paper towel. I just want to make sure I have a wet edge along this sand dune here. For the water, it doesn't matter so much. So the water in the distance, that horizon line of the water, the ocean, that's not going to be a bother. And I actually went over a little bit here, so I'm going to dry this up a little bit. I'm going to take some of my tissue and dry this up. I just realized that my sand dune is over here too as well. So there's only a tiny bit of ocean showing there, if you can imagine, if you can see that. There's only a little tiny bit of ocean showing there, about the width of my brush hairs right now. So I'm going to wet that edge too. And then that should be good. And I'll be careful. And you can even do it twice. You can even go over it twice. The first time's a little easier, or a little more slower, and then the second time you can just go over it quicker. Just keeping that nice wet edge along that pencil line where the sand dune is here. And then the sand dune over here too as well, where the water is, like that. All right, that should be good. Now we can go in. We'll do our, we'll take our square brush. We'll load that up with water. Then we're going to do a really beautiful, let's do a nice cobalt and cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue, tiny bit of burnt umber just to gray it down a bit. You'll notice you add a little tiny bit of burnt umber there, or a little bit of burnt sienna into that blue, and it really just mellows it out a little bit. And we're going to do a little bit of purple like that there, so we'll keep that a little separate. Now we have our colors mixed, so I mixed my colors first. I'm going to rinse my brush off, tap off the excess water, and let's wet the paper. And we already wet that edge, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's just get one good coat of water on the paper. Not too much, just dampen the paper. That's all, dampen the paper. And then let's dampen the paper underneath the weeds where our shadows are going to be. So we'll put a little bit of shadow color. So some damp, we take our damp square brush with a little bit of water on it, and we just wet the paper underneath the weeds where our shadows are going to be. And maybe a little tiny bit here and there. Those aren't so important, but over here, let's get that nice little bit of just a little bit of wet the paper, just a little bit. Like that. Perfect. Okay, now you're going to see the gorgeous blue sky here. Let's wet our brush, load it up with that paint we just mixed. And let's go right across there. Wow, that looks beautiful. Looks a little bit light. A little more French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue. I'm going right over the water, so the water is also, wow, that looks good. A little bit of purple. Let's get a little bit of purple in there too. Oh, look at that, perfect, yeah, purple. That looks nice in the sky a little bit, and then in the shadow areas. There we go. Look at that. Just let the water have, this is all the fun of it. The water's doing all the work. The paint and water is doing all of the work for us. We're just barely, we're doing those nice long shadows. See how that? Perfect, look at that. And that's all we really have to do. And a couple little tiny bits of shadow over here where those other little weeds are. We made little sketches, remember? We made those little pencil sketches of some weeds over there too. Let's put a little shadow into there. And then when we're done with that, let's lift up. We'll take some tissue and we'll just lift up some puddling. If you see puddling, try to lift that up a little bit with a tissue gently. Don't press on the paper, just touch the water. And if you touch that water just a little bit, that puddle of water, you could touch the paper too. And you could just go right along that edge and pick up those puddles if you have a couple puddles that form. But you want to try to not add too much water to your sky color. You know, you don't want to totally flood it out like crazy. You just want to get a good wash on there. Does that make sense? You know, not too much. We don't want to flood the paper so water starts flooding everywhere. And we also put, remember we put that water, we did that dampening of the edge of that, where the sand dune starts. We did that, which really helps us a lot because the water won't flow over that edge. Once you dampen that edge, the watercolor is just going to flow down and stop. So that's why we did that. And you can see that really is looking good. We can take our we can take our needlepoint brush and just do a few of these. Just an indication of some of those shadows of the weeds and the grasses. Doesn't have to be, just a few is good. Just a few like that. And that's enough. That's perfect. And now this is the fun part. Since we're going to get a regular round brush now. Medium size, nothing too much here. And we're going to get a little more of that purple color. And we'll just infuse and just charge in some of that purple. You want to leave white paper though. You want to leave lots of white paper throughout here. Like we don't want to go too much. And if you feel you went too much, you can take a little tissue and lift up a little bit of paint. No big deal. Like that. And let's see what we can do here. A little purple there. And I just do a little bit of the purple color over here too, or those other. And I forgot to do my little bit of splashing. And then I'll take a little bit of the yellow ochre. We're going to do a little yellow ochre splashing. Sand, that sand, you know, the feeling of sand. And then we can even just blot a little bit. And then we could do some raw umber and some purple and some cobalt blue. So we're going to mix around a little different colors here. We want to go a little darker, closer to the underside of those weeds and things. So that's why I made that little bit of a darker mix, like that. And then maybe I just put a couple upstrokes here and there with the darks. We could even go in with a little bit of burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, raw umber. And here's where the fun is. We're working while the paper is damp. And that gives you that really nice effect of the water kind of blending in with the paints and we can just do little tiny bits there. And you're going to see that it's really going to look good. A couple splashes, just a few. Okay, mostly this is cool right now. We have mostly cool colors. Maybe let's do some yellow ochre. And that's our sand color, that yellow ochre color. Maybe a little bit of that lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow. That makes a great kind of sunshine feel. Just a little bit in that. Here and there, not much, just a little bit. And a little raw umber. Raw umber and cobalt blue. A little bit of yellow ochre. And I'm just trying to make a little shadow along this. Along that top of that. Somehow that water sort of leaked over the. That's okay. Okay, perfect. This is a good time that we would. I'll make a little bit of a shadow there. And then a little bit of that sand color over there. Okay, everything's going to come together in a few. Let's let this dry now. So you saw how we got our first glazing on, the sky wash, the shadowing underneath the plants. We're going to make some plants here. We're going to do all our grasses and plants and a little bit of flowers. And so the main objective now with our first wash was to get in all the shadowing, a little bit of that sand color, that warm color too as well. We don't want everything just all blue and purple. We wanted to get in some of this different tonal values, a little darker darks by the bottoms of these plants here and these grasses and things. So once we have that all done, and now we're complete with that, this is perfect. We can let this set, let this dry. Let's take 10, 15 minutes now, a break, and then we'll come back and we'll start going in and doing our plants. We'll have some needlepoint brushes. We'll use our round brush again, and I think we should be good. I think we'll have, maybe we'll even use our Hake brush. So our Hake brush is really good too. We'll dampen this up. We'll put some water on it. So it'll be ready when we come back. We dampen the Hake brush, and then we can just splay out the hairs on this like so. And once we do that, this will make some incredible grass and weeds and things like that. So we can use this too as well. Let's try this one. And all right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back from our break, everyone. Breaks are great. Breaks will actually help you to sort of game plan a little bit. I mentioned this in my last couple of videos here and there. I try to give you the method behind what I'm thinking. As far as when I'm creating my paintings, I'm thinking if I take breaks, I can actually kind of game plan when I'm coming back, because I've taken a break. I've walked away from my table, my palette, my workstation. I come back, I might have a cup of coffee with me. I'm relaxed, and I look at everything and I say, oh, what can I do? Like, what am I going to do next? Is the paper dry enough? Is the paper too wet to go back in? All right, what's my next step? What colors am I going to use now? So all these things, when we're taking breaks, you can kind of use that time as you're coming back to your painting to sort of strategize, and that really is very helpful, because really just that little bit of extra time to game plan a little bit is going to really pay off and give you great results. Let's say I didn't take a break here and I just kept going. Maybe I wouldn't have thought about what colors I'm going to make the grass and the flowers in this painting. I might have just charged right ahead and started just mixing greens and blues, and then maybe I wouldn't have thought of what color I might want to use for some flowers in this painting. Maybe now, since I'm taking a little bit of a break, I have my coffee with me, and I can say, oh, what color would I want to make the flowers in this? I'm going to put some flowers shapes in these croppings of grass and weeds. So then I would think to myself, okay, well, now I have the time. I can actually sit back here and look at this as I'm staying at my work table here. And I look at it and say, oh, maybe alizarin crimson might look really nice. I could even take a scrap piece of paper. So it's always great to take a piece of scrap paper sometimes and do a little bit of ideas and say, okay, how does that look? Is that going to match the blue and purple pretty nicely? Maybe what other color flowers can we use? Maybe some orange flowers. And then maybe I can fold over my paper and say to myself, how is orange going to look? Orange looks good too, so maybe a mixture of orange and maybe some orange and red flowers. That's going to look pretty nice. Maybe some cadmium lemon yellow. Yeah, that's going to look pretty good. So I can mix these up. I might decide I just want to use more of a simple flower color, maybe just alizarin crimson with a little purple. That's kind of nice too, alizarin crimson and purple. With maybe a couple little bits of maybe cadmium. Yeah, cadmium might look nice there too. Yeah, maybe that's the maybe this is sort of the, maybe we want to go with some cadmium red, and some alizarin crimson, and maybe some purple. That might look good with a little bit of orange. So you can work out your ideas with your colors beforehand on a separate piece of paper, and you can set it down there and kind of think to yourself what might look best. Okay, so now this is really nice. This is very dry. This is just a little tiny bit damp, but not much. Like it's dry to the touch here. So we can get right back in and we'll start working. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to wipe the palette up a little bit here, so we want to have nice, fresh, clean color as we're working. And then when I clean off my palette, I definitely wipe up the excess water. That's also very important to get up the water too off the palette. Once we wash up the palette and clean up the palette, definitely get all the water off too. For the most part, most of the water. Because now we're going to be using pretty much straight out of the tube paint now. We're not going to be using much water at all, so we want to make sure we keep that palette nice and dry. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to mix some green, sap green, and a little bit of yellow ochre, burnt sienna. And we'll make ourselves a nice green here. And then I'm just going to do some weed and grass type feel like that. Just a few here and there. And if you go over a spot, you just tap it up with your tissue, no big deal. And that's all I'm going to really do, is just sort of get a few some nice green, vibrant green color, and then some more raw umber and green mixtures where we can have some, some of that. And I'm just going to do some random, not too much though, just a little bit with this bigger brush here like this, just a few. We don't want to do, these are more the larger shapes. And we don't want to do too, over here we don't want to use this brush because this is too big now. This brush is, we need to use the needlepoint brush over here on this further section out here in the distance. So we want to make sure we kind of remember that closer up in the foreground of this painting. Yeah, we're going to use the larger brushes like this for these. But then once over here we see some of these grass and things over here, we want to use the real small needlepoint brush to get some of those details. And we just want them very minimal. We don't want much detail over there. That's more in the distance. I'm going to take a little bit of water on my brush, raw umber, green, and just a couple splashes, just for interesting, just a few, not much, just a little. That's it, perfect. Then I'm going to tie in my shadows right away. Let me use that cobalt blue like we used before for the sky, and the purple, and a little bit of raw umber, a little bit of warm in the. And notice how I separate them all, and I don't take them and swirl them all together. I'm leaving them separate like this. Take a little bit of each. And I'll just do a little bit of shadowing like that. Nice and loose with the brush. Dark under there like that. And again, shadows are very loose and free looking, and don't suffer over anything. Just get them in there quick. And that's it. Then I'll take that same thing, mix right there, and just do some more splashing too with that. Just a little bit though. 1 or 2, that's it. Okay, now, as you notice, we're working from large brush to small brush. Now we're using our smaller brush. This is the needlepoint brush we're going to use now. And we're going to use the green and blue, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and a little bit of the green. And this is these grasses are more, the wind catches these more. And we could use a little bit of that darker French ultramarine blue in that green mix, just so we can see some of the, like that. And just a few. Again, we're not, it's okay if, you know, but you just see I'm going really fast and I'm swaying everything. The wind is going this way. So all of my finer grasses and things are going this way, to the right. And if you go out to the beach and things, you'll always see that's how it really is. The small grasses and things, they float with the wind, just like this. You have fun and you pretend you're out at the beach and pretend you're sitting here with your paints on a lawn chair and having a good time. And that's it. That's pretty good. Then we're just going to do a little bit over here. I dry off my brush, my needlepoint brush. I dry it off just so there's a little bit of, just so I can get a few small, and even if it takes you a few to kind of get the, just a little indication there. And I'm just making sure I get those, the grasses over there, and a little bit of purple for some shadowing. A couple little spots of shadow. Perfect. That looks good. That looks good. A little bit of the gold color. Some raw sienna. Just a little bit of raw sienna over there for the sand color. And a couple, just some lines of, like that. And then I always go with a few going the other way just to disrupt that pattern of everything going to the right. All right, now let's alizarin crimson. And these, we're just going to have some like flower indications of some flowers, and we're actually going to we'll mix some other colors in there, and then over here maybe there's just a few. These are just maybe some, and then we're going to go in and we're going to we said purple too. We're going to use some purple. flowers, purple and red, some alizarin crimson, and we're also going to use some cadmium red. So we'll use all these three colors: alizarin crimson, cadmium red, purple. Okay, let's do some purple here. Maybe we'll do the purple underneath. So we'll make some of that purple the shadowing color. So you just we would remember here, if this makes sense, we would add the shadowy color, the darker color, the purple, on the shadow side of the flower, which would be behind us, this way, over here. So the sunlight's coming from this way. So we put some of the shadow purpley color over there. Like that. So this will be the majority of our flower colors. And then we'll just add a little to the tops of the flowers. So the cadmium red is the brightest of the flower part. The parts of the flowers are the brightest are the cadmium red. So we add that to the top of the flowers. That's where the light is. And there we go. Just a few here and there. And that's all. And we could also splash a little bit too. A couple little. Just a couple little splashes will make an interesting effect. Not too much. Then what we will do is a little bit of orange, cadmium orange. And that's just sparingly, a couple spots. And then we can go in and get a little more French ultramarine blue. And that would be burnt sienna. And we can just do a little couple sort of like twigs, like plant like twigs here. Not so much grasses, but sort of like wood, like the more darker. Like that. And purple. For a little bit of shadow. That looks fine. Now I'm going to take French ultramarine blue with burnt sienna there. A little bit of green. And I'm going to make the edge of the water here. And this is like the real fun part here. You know, we're kind of finished now. We have all the work completed here for the most part. We'll leave some white paper, or not white paper, but we'll leave some of the dry paper sections here so that we have that feel of the ocean. And a little bit darker for the very, very top. Dry off a little bit of paint. And that looks pretty good. And I interrupt that line, so that's a long dark line there across the horizon line. I try to interrupt that line a little bit with the tissue. And we could use a little bit of this here too. Purple, add some purple in there. And that's, we can do some, little bit of darker darks in here. Not too much though. This is where we kind of just look at the painting and French ultramarine blue, purple, a little bit of burnt sienna, and we just add a little bit of darks here. And if it looks too dark, you can take a tissue and blot it up a little bit if you think you've added too much paint, but that looks pretty good. Okay, so we've got pretty much everything completed now. The only thing I would like to do is we'll use our Hake brush. This is really nice. This is a Hake brush that I've had for many years now. I basically dampen it before I'm going to work with it. About 15 minutes before I work with it, I dampen it with water. And then I just splay it out like this. And then we can take it, we can go in here. And we can get some greens and some browns. And we just make some, maybe some grass colors. That's a nice grass color there, some brown and green. And then we just maybe here, we just do a couple little quick. Might need a little more water. That's all. And then I make it a little darker. Then I would dry it off on a paper towel or a tissue, and then splay out the brush again. This a little darker color here. We'll get a little more. And that's it. So this is just what we did, is we just added a little bit of interest with some kind of that grass feel in the foreground here. We could even take our needlepoint brush and just add to that and make it more wild looking like this here. And that just kind of sets the rest of the scene back a little bit further back. And what I would do next is make another bit of dark here, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of raw umber. And then I would just do some splashing. Just a little bit of splashing here. Just like that. A little bit of water. Splash some water on there maybe. Okay. Then we just blot up a little bit of water. Okay, let's peel up the tape here. See how this looks. And that looks really good. Lots of interesting colors. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Lots of interesting colors, textures. All right, I hope everyone had fun. This is really interesting to do. Lots of techniques here that you can practice. I've practiced these many times. I still have more to learn about wet on wet techniques. This glazing technique is really challenging. I still have to do some work on it. And it's always, something that we can never practice too much, doing the glazing technique, of course, to get nice, really beautiful washes. But as you can see here, the sky color does look really nice, that purple and blue. And then the nice white sand dunes here look really good. I like the overall look of this. If I could change anything, I might have reduced the number of, maybe a few, I might have done a few less croppings of grass and flowers. I think I might have added too many here. I'm not sure. But everyone's different. You might decide you want to do more than these, or you might want to do less. But that's up to you. You're the artist. You decide what you like as far as the design of your painting and what looks good to you. Again, hope you had fun. Again, please thumbs up if you like this video. Thumbs up really helps me a lot. It helps other people get interested in my channel. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you on the next video.